I'll always remember the heartfelt conversation I had with my father when I shared the news of my engagement. He pulled me aside, concern etched on his face, and asked if I was truly certain about marrying Stephen. While he acknowledged my love for him, he expressed reservations about whether he was the right match for me. Confused, I pressed him for an explanation. My father told me that, despite Stephen being affectionate and respectful, he sensed something unsettling about him and his mother that he couldn't quite articulate, attributing it to a father's instinct. I was defensive, questioning why he felt that way. My father mentioned that Stephen often boasted about my wealth to his friends, portraying me as a trophy rather than a partner. He worried that Stephen's affection might not be genuine. At the time, I dismissed my father's concerns, blinded by love and clinging to a relationship that felt like it could anchor me, especially after losing my mother 3 years prior. With my father's health declining, I felt a profound need for stability. My father had built his wealth through savvy investments and hard work, creating a comfortable life for us. I was also earning a decent income, but in contrast, Stephen and his mother, Megan, came from a modest background and frequently expressed their dissatisfaction with not having enough. Even after moving into my house post-marriage, they remained discontent, always yearning for a more luxurious lifestyle. In retrospect, I realized that my father likely saw what I couldn't at the time. I was a young woman in love, desperate to hold on to something that felt like it could provide meaning amid the grief and loneliness I felt. Although Stephen and Megan became my new family, they were not the sanctuary I had hoped for. I vividly remember a moment when Stephen and Megan lamented the size of my townhouse in comparison to my father's mansion. "It's such a shame," they said, "that with your dad living in such a grand place, you ended up buying this tiny house." I explained that despite my father's wealth, I was just a regular office worker with a modest income, and buying this house had only been possible with his help on the down payment. Megan, ever materialistic, suggested my father should have bought me a better place, hinting that something must have been left for me by my mother after her sudden passing without a will. I tried to clarify that whatever my mother had left was rightfully my father's and that I was content with what I had, feeling no entitlement to more. Then Stephen made a bold suggestion that my father should swap houses with us since he was living alone and didn't need all that space. To my shock, Megan eagerly agreed. I was appalled and firmly refused, emphasizing that the house belonged to my father, who deserved to live there comfortably for the rest of his days. Their response was cold and calculating, suggesting that since my father was ill, they could wait a few years, and eventually, everything would belong to me. Their blatant planning for my inheritance was deeply disturbing, compounded by their constant nudges to ask my father for more money, even though we weren't in financial distress. They seemed fixated on living a millionaire lifestyle without the means to support it. The real crisis unfolded after my father passed away from cancer. I was heartbroken and received little support from Stephen or Megan, who seemed more concerned about the will than my grief. They even refused to attend my father's funeral, claiming he meant nothing to them. This left me feeling both devastated and furious as my father's earlier warnings echoed in my mind, stirring doubts about Stephen and Megan's true intentions. Their increasingly questionable behavior became hard to ignore, and I found myself seriously questioning their motives in our relationship. I couldn't shake the feeling that Stephen and Megan were primarily interested in my inheritance. Their intentions became painfully clear during the will reading. Outraged at being excluded, Stephen demanded to know why they weren't allowed to attend. "He was my father-in-law, after all," he exclaimed. Megan chimed in, insisting it was absurd that they, as family, were not present to hear what Lawrence had left behind, claiming her son should have some right to be there. The lawyer's response was blunt: "Your son isn't mentioned in the will, Megan, so he cannot attend the reading." I felt compelled to confront them about their obsession with the inheritance, especially given their absence from the funeral. It seemed to me that my father was only considered family when money was involved. After the will reading, their behavior escalated. I returned home to face their incessant questions, still grieving my father. They offered no comfort or sympathy, only probing me about the details of the inheritance. "So how much did you inherit from your parents? They must have left you a lot, right?" Megan asked eagerly. I responded, more to end their speculation than anything else. "Actually, I didn't receive any money. My parents' wealth wasn't left to me." The revelation stunned them. "You got nothing, but your parents were wealthy. They must have left you something. Are you sure you're not hiding it from us?" Stephen accused. I reassured them. There's no money. You're welcome to check my bank statement soon, but you won't find any changes. As for the rest of their assets, they decided to donate what was left to charity. Their frustration was palpable, and Megan was quick to suggest I contest the will. That's ridiculous. You need to fight for your inheritance, she insisted. I stood firm in my response. There's nothing to fight for. My parents decided to give their remaining assets to charity. I respected my parents' choice, but Stephen and Megan seemed infuriated by my lack of interest in pursuing a fortune that no longer existed. Their anger and disbelief baffled me, but it only solidified my suspicions about their true motivations. I was on the verge of revealing everything, but a nagging doubt held me back. I couldn't shake the feeling that Stephen and his mother were scheming behind my back as they continued to press me for details about the inheritance. I stood my ground, firmly repeating that I hadn't received any money and even suggested I could show them my bank account to prove it. As a month went by, Stephen's behavior changed dramatically. He grew distant and agitated, frequently checking my bank account and badgering me about the inheritance. It became clear to me what his true motivations might be. Finally, I had enough and decided to confront the situation head-on. I showed them my bank statements, confirming that no inheritance had come my way. See? I wasn't lying. There's no secret inheritance, I asserted, hoping this would settle the matter. However, their reaction shocked me. Stephen exploded, all our years of effort wasted. So your parents weren't that rich, and you didn't even get a dime. This is unbelievable. His disappointment was palpable, and then he uttered words that shattered me. I stayed in this marriage for nothing. I married you for nothing. It was all a waste. What do you mean, Stephen? Why would you say that? I asked, my heart sinking. Megan scoffed. Who would marry you without considering the money? My son married you expecting we could bank on your inheritance. Now we see you got nothing. I can't believe I wasted 6 years on a useless girl like you. Stephen could have done so much better. Hearing them speak so callously confirmed my worst fears. It was clear that Stephen had married me for my money. My parents had been right about him and his mother. They were nothing but gold diggers. As much as it hurt, what came next was even more crushing. Megan turned to Stephen with a cold, calculating look. What's done is done, Stephen, but now it's time for you to leave her. There's no reason to say any more. You'll have time to find a new rich wife next time, one who has money. Her words pierced through me like a knife. Are you kidding me, Megan? You're pushing Stephen to divorce me over money? I asked, my voice trembling, and the silence from Stephen spoke volumes. It was a defining moment for me. The facade had crumbled, revealing the stark and ugly truth of their intentions. Heartbroken, I knew I had to find the strength to move on from this betrayal. Stephen's response was chillingly pragmatic. I married you because I thought it would secure a comfortable life for me and my mom. We've always struggled. I didn't go to college and had no real means to earn much. I thought marrying you would change that, assuming your parents would leave you a substantial inheritance that you would share with us. His blunt admission that he had feigned love for financial security stunned me. He continued, it was the only way I thought I could give my mom the life she deserved. But now that there's no inheritance, it seems my efforts were pointless. Mom's right, I need to look forward and keep searching. His words, delivered so casually, shook me deeply as he and Megan vented their frustration. Overwhelmed by the enormity of their deceit, I found myself tuning them out. Their lack of empathy and Stephen's sudden shift in attitude were both upsetting and infuriating. I was so angry I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I restrained myself. Instead, I responded calmly, okay then, Stephen. If a divorce is what you want, then that's what you'll get. I've never been one to deny your requests. Consider this a final favor. Megan, ever the antagonist, jumped in. Don't think this means you can take alimony for my son. We'll fight you tooth and nail before you see a cent of that. I replied firmly, you're right, I don't have much money at the moment. So here's what I propose. A mutual divorce with no division of assets or alimony. You don't have much, and neither do I right now. If you forgo alimony, I'll agree to sign and not claim anything further from you. We then discussed the details of our divorce more pragmatically. The conversation was devoid of any emotional connection. It felt purely transactional, reflecting the stark reality of our relationship's dissolution. As we negotiated the terms, I could see that Megan and Stephen were pleased I wasn't creating any drama over the process. Perhaps they were surprised by my composed demeanor, unaware that I was privately unraveling. On my way to work, tears streamed down my face, and I often spent hours crying alone in my car before and after my shifts. Neither Stephen nor Megan noticed my puffy eyes or questioned why my daily routine had suddenly extended. Once Megan realized there was no inheritance in my future, she barely acknowledged my existence, further solidifying my resolve to end this marriage swiftly. I made arrangements for Stephen and Megan to move out of my house and into a nearby rented apartment. They settled in quickly, and as the divorce proceedings progressed, Stephen, true to his word, did not claim any part of my house. In turn, I chose not to seek alimony. It was a straightforward exchange. On the day our divorce was finalized, I decided to take one last step. I visited their rental to return my wedding and engagement rings. Standing at their doorstep, I said, "I just want to return these. This marriage brought nothing but distress into my life, and I prefer not to keep any reminders of it." Megan scoffed, seizing the moment to taunt me. "Are you sure? You might need the money. It's amusing how you once looked down on our poverty, and now look at your situation. My son is being generous by letting you keep the rings. You might need to sell them when your job falls through." Her words stung, but I retorted with a laugh, which seemed to confuse both Megan and Stephen. "Why would I need to sell the rings for money, Megan? You don't need to feel embarrassed for me. We already know my parents left me nothing. They lost it all to poor decisions, leaving their daughter with nothing, or so you think." My laughter in the face of their cruelty unsettled them. I could see a hint of annoyance in Stephen's expression, perhaps embarrassed by his mother's bluntness. As I turned to leave, their baffled faces signaled that they still hadn't grasped the full extent of my independence and resilience. I walked away, knowing I was finally free from their toxicity and ready to rebuild my life on my terms. Stephen looked visibly puzzled by my laughter, while Megan, annoyed, demanded, "Why the hell are you laughing? Did I say something funny?" Her disbelief only fueled my amusement. "It's truly hilarious how you think I'm destitute, Megan, and even more amusing that you believe my parents squandered their entire fortune." Megan snapped back, convinced of her narrative. "Of course you're destitute. Your parents didn't leave you a penny. They surely ruined your life by not providing you an inheritance." I couldn't help but smirk at her misunderstanding. "I never said I didn't receive an inheritance, Megan. I simply told you I didn't get any money." I nodded, relishing the moment. "Indeed, my parents left me quite the inheritance." Confusion clouded her face. "What the hell does that mean? You have an inheritance?" I continued. "My parents saw right through you and Stephen as the gold diggers you are, so they included a secret clause in their will. They left me no money. Instead, I inherited this entire neighborhood." Megan's shock was palpable. "You own this neighborhood? How is that possible? We would have known about your inheritance. We even signed our lease with an estate manager who didn't mention the owner's name." I replied, "My parents wanted me to wait a year before claiming my inheritance. They wanted to test you to see if you were with me for money or love. You failed that test, and now you won't receive anything from me. The estate manager was appointed by my parents to manage the property until I could claim it. They were very clever, you know." "That's impossible. I don't believe a word you're saying. You're just embarrassed because you have no money." Megan shot back, disbelief etched across her features. Stephen chimed in, skeptical yet curious. "Oh really? Is that what you think happened?" His tone was mocking, but I could sense a hint of doubt. "Well, why don't we just call the landlord and find out from him?" "Go ahead," I encouraged, fully aware of what the outcome would be. With a mix of defiance and desperation, Megan and Stephen called their landlord, who indeed was the estate manager. As they listened, their expressions transformed from confidence to shock. The estate manager confirmed everything I had said. After hanging up, their faces twisted with a mix of anger and panic. "You lied to us," Megan accused, her voice trembling. "You tricked us into thinking you had nothing." Standing there, watching their realization dawn, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Their obsession with wealth had blinded them to the value of genuine relationships, and now they were reaping the consequences of their greed and deceit. Stephen and Megan stood there, dumbfounded, grappling with the fact that I now owned the entire housing community. "You kept all this wealth to yourself. You tricked Stephen into divorcing you and made sure he wouldn't claim anything." Megan's voice was tinged with desperation and betrayal. I couldn't help but laugh at their feeble attempt to twist the narrative. "It's quite ironic that you're calling me the trickster," I replied, the irony of their accusation not lost on me. "Stephen, you married me under false pretenses, claiming love where there was none. And Megan, You coached him into this and even pushed for the divorce, thinking there would be no financial repercussions for you. If anyone's the scammer here, it's both of you. The truth was simple. They had inquired about my financial gains from the inheritance, and I had answered honestly. This was all a big misunderstanding, wasn't it? But what's done is done. It's curious how you're suddenly interested in rekindling things now that you know about my inheritance. And Stephen, aren't you already courting another wealthy woman? Don't worry, I'll make sure she knows exactly who you are. As the severity of their situation sank in, Stephen and Megan began to plead with me. Stephen even dared to ask me not to interfere with his new relationship if I wasn't willing to give him a second chance. My response was blunt. Get lost. I also informed them that they would be evicted once the property transfer was finalized. Over the following weeks, they repeatedly showed up at my doorstep, begging for forgiveness. Their desperation was palpable, especially since they already had an eviction on their record, making it difficult to find a new place. The only reason they were still on my property was that I had instructed the estate manager to allow it temporarily. Taking action, I reached out to Stephen's new interests and told her everything. She was appalled by their actions and ended things with him immediately, even showing me their exchange of texts as proof of the breakup. After this debacle, when Stephen and Megan resorted to verbally attacking me, I had no choice but to call the police. Their actions had crossed all boundaries of decency, confirming that my decision to distance myself from them was not just right, but necessary. Once the inheritance was officially transferred into my name, I didn't hesitate to evict Stephen and Megan from the property. They seemed shocked that I had followed through with my threat. Despite their initial disbelief, they attempted to return to my property, prompting me to call the police. The officers issued them a stern warning, and I proceeded to file for a restraining order to ensure they would stay away. Word of our altercation quickly spread throughout the town, and soon everyone knew about their deceitful behavior. As a result, they found themselves socially ostracized, forcing them to leave the city and try to start fresh elsewhere. Meanwhile, I relished my newfound financial independence, liberated from the clutches of gold-digging leeches. I was finally free to enjoy my life and the wealth my parents had wisely left me, ensuring it would benefit someone who truly appreciated their legacy.